Hey, 30-1s. Here's a quick video on helping you to determine the equation given a graph of a trig function. What most students struggle with in these graphs is finding the C value. So that's what I've got highlighted for you here in my graph. It depends on whether we're looking at sine or whether we're looking at cosine. Okay, again, here's the steps that I want you to follow. First thing we're always going to find is the midline or the median line. That's halfway between our max and our min. So we're always going to find that first. From there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my amplitude right there or right there. Amplitude is always positive. That's your A value. If you choose to make it negative, that means it's been vertically reflected. We can do that. Okay, now, then your period. Again, your period, you could go from min to min. You could go from max to min and multiply it by 2. Or you could go from midline intercept to midline intercept. So there's tons of different ways to find the period. That will then give us the B value. But then it's the C value, like I was saying, that seems to bother a lot of students. The C value is the only thing that changes, the horizontal translation or the phase shift between a sine and a cosine. A sine graph starts on my midline going up. That's my C value. A cosine graph starts at a max going down. That's it. Now, if we were talking about reflections, we would say this is a sine reflected starting spot. That would be my C value because it's going to start on the midline going down. And on a cosine graph, if we were reflecting it, I would look here because I'm going to start at a min. That's it. So let's go ahead and let's look at an example. And we'll write the equation of sine and cosine for this one. So a couple things I want you to do here. First thing you always want to do is figure out your scale. So I notice when I'm in radians, I'm going to count my tick marks over to pi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so my scale is pi twelfths. Okay, that's going to be helpful. So now all I'm going to do as I'm going through this is I'm going to just go in the order I did just a second ago. I'm going to find the D value. Well, D, if you want a formula, it's the average line is max plus min divided by 2, which in this case is going to be 2 plus -4 divided by 2, which is at -1. Most of the time, you don't need to use a formula. You can probably just look at it and say, there it is. There's D. So D is -1. Love it. After that, then we go hunting for our amplitude. What's my A value? Well, I just count. It's right there. That's my amplitude. Amplitude is 3. If you wanted to use a formula for that, there is one. Just make sure you put absolute value bars on it. I see a lot of people miss that. And so you would say this is 2 subtract -4 divided by 2, which is 3. So there is a formula if you want to use it. But again, I like to count on my fingers. I've been doing it since I was a little guy. Okay, everyone gets A and D. This is where people start struggling, finding the period and then finding the C value. Okay, period. I can find it in all sorts of ways. Max to max, min to min, midline intercept to midline intercept. There's tons of different ways to do it. In fact, I'm going to do midline intercept to midline intercept because I actually see this is drawn right here, right? And I start to repeat over here. Okay, there's my period. All I'm going to do is count tick marks. How many pi twelfths is what this scale was. How many pi twelfths did we go over? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's it. Our period is 12 pi over 12, also known as pi. Okay, but that's not what goes in our formula, our equation. B is 2 pi divided by p, 2 pi divided by pi, 2. And then what I do is I stop and ask myself, does that make sense? My horizontal stretch is actually the reciprocal of my b value. My horizontal stretch is a half. Does that make sense? Well, that means my period went from 2 pi to pi. Makes sense. Okay, there's your b value. Okay, so if I'm going to write the equations of these two things here, I'm going to do sine and cosine. Everything stays the same except for the except for the c value. Okay, so here we go. A is 3. Bang, bang. B is 2. Build it in factored form. Bang, bang. D value doesn't change. Bang, bang. Okay, this should be theta and theta. Okay, C value is the only thing that changes. So speaking of changes, let's go to pretty green. Okay, a sine graph starts on the midline going up. Well, the closest one to the y-axis is that one. There's sine. So I just count my tick marks from the y-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 pi over 12 right there. Also known as pi over 3. Done. Cosine graph. Let's go to pretty neon green. Cosine starts at a max going down. Well, it has to go down. It's a max. I always say that. I don't know why. Well, that's at pi over 12. And done. That's it, friends. There's how you do that. If you wanted to, we could do reflected sine and reflected cosine. Let's do that while we're here. Reflected sine and reflected cosine. So all I do, again, is say to myself, nothing's going to change except the c value. Like that. And here comes cosine. So for a reflection, you're not reflecting the graph. This is the given graph. You're thinking of this graph as it's already been reflected. Okay? So you're not reflecting the graph. You're thinking it already has been. So if we're reflected, that means these are negatives. So the amplitude's still positive 3. It's been vertically reflected. Those are two separate things. Okay, a sine graph usually starts on the midline going down. I'm just going to draw that midline back in. A sine graph usually starts on the midline going down. Up. Sorry, I'm getting confused because I'm saying one thing. A sine graph usually starts on the midline going up. If it's reflected, it's going to start on the midline going down. And that's that point I gave you right there. Okay, that's 2 pi over 12. So minus pi over 6. A cosine graph usually starts at a max going down. So if it's been reflected, I'm going to say it's going to start at a min going up. Right there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like 5 to me. Count one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is. Minus 5 pi over 12 to the right. There's how you find the equation of a sine and a cosine graph. I hope that helps, friends. So again, I'm just going to scroll back up one more time here to this image. This is what you really need to know. A sine graph starts on the midline going up. A cosine graph starts at a max going down. A reflected sine starts on the midline going down. A reflected cosine starts at a min going up. There you are.